Today we are replacing the power steering filter on a Massey Ferguson 245. This is the diesel. I couldn't find a video online, so I thought I would do a quick one here. Step one is to clean the area up. I did it with diesel fuel and a spray bottle and a wire brush. Step two is remove these two power steering lines. It takes an 11/16 wrench to remove that. And step three is to remove this bolt that's it's holding your alternator bracket, and this bolt at the bottom right there. That takes a 9/16 wrench, and since I'm doing this trying to get it done, I'm not going to video that. I don't have a tripod, so I'm going to remove those and pick back up after that. Alright, got this first bolt broken loose. It's free. There's a spacer right here that you got to catch. Or drop. Alright, so now we're going for this bolt on the bottom. Alright, so I've got my lines loose. Hopefully that'll let this pump fall off into my hands. Oh. Painted or stuck or something. Or I'm not. Let me work on that a little bit and I'll be back. Alright, let's see what happens. Yep. That's it. All right. Almost got it. All right. There's our pump. Let's replace the filter. All right, so we got our power steering pump off. Got it inside here. And I need to disassemble it, but before I do that, I'm going to clean it up. Not gonna video that. But I'm going to clean it up using a wire brush. Alright, so I got the pump cleaned up, at least as clean as I'm going to get it. I paid particular attention to this gasket mating surface, so it's clean. I ended up using more than a wire brush. I ended up using a Ziz wheel with a piece of Scotch-Brite on it. The next step is I need to take this plug out. I think that's an 11/16, but I left that outside. So I use an adjustable wrench. And then after that, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bolts around the outside of the pump. And those are 5/16. So I can't do that while I hold the phone, but I'll do it and be back in a minute. All right, so I got the plug out. I actually don't know if that had to come out or not. And I got those bolts from around the outside of the pump. I spent a couple of minutes trying to figure out how to get this outside housing off, which is the next thing that has to happen. And without some way to hold it, I'm really struggling to get it done. So I think the first thing I'm going to try is, I thought about going and just putting it back on the tractor so that it would be held in place, but I think instead of doing that, I've got some 9/16 by 4-inch bolts. I think I'm going to thread those into the body and then just use the vise, my vise, to hold it, and then see what I can do to try to coax this cover off. I'll show you what that looks like in the vise in a second. Alright, so I threaded bolts, 2 bolts into the body, and I'm holding those with my vise. If you'll notice, this is not being touched by the vise, so I've got it as far in as I can without anything touching the vise. And this still doesn't really move, so. Okay, so here's what I came up with. Using the side of a chisel, it could be a screwdriver or whatever you got, but this is what I've got. And pushing right there, whoops, seems to be doing the trick. So I've almost got it off, so I'm going to get it off right now. All right, so that did the trick. Oh, the filter fell off. And here's an O-ring, which I've got a new one of, so when I get this housing back on the bench, cleaned up and reassembled with a new filter and big O-ring. Okay, I just rotated my vise up so that it'll hold the pump. Easy to work on here. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Alright, so here is the AGCO part number for my filter. I just went and searched for AGCO parts book, and they still have a pretty good parts book to go find anything you want. So there's the filter part number. And it's going to just sit right in this space right here, which is now clean. Alright. It just sits there. It doesn't thread in or anything else. And then next is the O-ring. And then there's the part number for the O-ring. This would be easier with 2 hands. Let me do that. Okay, so I ran a little oil around the outside of this housing and around the O-ring. And I got to get it back together, which is apparently going to be a huge pain in the butt, but definitely can't do it and film it. But what I'm going to watch out for is if I look at the bottom right here, there's a hose connection that comes off at a 45-degree angle. That needs to line up with the fill plug. So this needs to go something like that, where there's the fill plug and there's the 45-degree connection on the bottom. All right, I'm gonna try to get this together and pick up in a second. All right, I got that on. That was a pain in the neck. You have to just sort of get it started and go around. I don't know how you should do it, but I used a rubber mallet and around and around and around and around until I drove it down on, and then put my bolts back in around the outside. I bought a new drain plug and a bag of gaskets, but they don't fit, so I'll be using the old one for now. And then we'll go put this back on the tractor. All right, so I've got my mating surfaces cleaned up. And clean. In case I got junk, trash in here. Now I'm going to do an oil change after this anyway, but in case I got trash, try to get it out of here and not actually run it through the engine. All right, so we're ready. All right, so what I'm going to do now is give myself, I'm going to run these bolts back in so that I have a place to sort of align and, well, number one, hang the gasket that's got to go back there. And then number two, also a place to kind of get that pump aligned and the thread started. This upper one's going to require two hands because I got to get a spacer in between here. But I'll have that done in just a second. Got that through there. Push some junk out of the holes. Alright, I think we're ready to hang the pump back on. Alright, this is the gasket that goes between the pump and the engine. And there's the part number. Alright. There's our gasket, ready to go. And I know I can't do this with one hand, so I'm going to just have to stop the recording while I hang this back on. Alright, so that went on a lot easier than I thought. And all I need to do now is tighten these bolts. One there. And one there. Alright, gotta get a ratchet. Alright, got those bolts tightened. Last two things is put our hydraulic lines back on. Tighten them down. One there. One. Can't get a great picture of it. Alright, I'm sure you get the idea here. Alright, all the hard stuff is over here. All that's left is to fill this. It's an exercise in frustration. But fill this, it'll take about a quart. Start the tractor, turn the wheels to left and right to get the air bubbles out, and then top it off. And that's all there is left, and then this one's done. Thanks.